Hello and welcome. My name is Scott Suskovic. I'm pastor at Christ Lutheran Church, and welcome to this podcast that we call Deeper Dive, in which we take a look at the previous Sunday's sermon and go at a deeper level for a great conversation. We're glad you're here. Hey, welcome to this next episode of our podcast, Deeper Dive. Today, I'm Pastor Scott, joined by
Pastor Adrian.
And we're going to look back at Sunday's sermon as we wrapped up the whole Tim Talk. What do you think about this whole series?
I really liked it. That's not something I would have chosen. And when we were planning it, you and Pastor Ryan were talking because I came in late. And so I caught up. But really this idea of like early church guidance and how it applies today.
Right. There's the inspiration of the Holy Spirit in that Paul is speaking to a specific person in a specific area with specific issues, and yet they are, for the most part, universal that still speak a word to us today.
Yeah.
So we wrapped up 2 Timothy, the last chapter of the last book that we know of that Paul wrote before his execution. And he begins very reflective about his impending death. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Really answering that one question that we should be asking as we near death. Not so much how old the person is or what they've accomplished or was it an accident or an expected death, but whether or not they died in faith. So this past Sunday was one of those Sundays or one of those sermons that the Spirit was at work. I suspect the Spirit's always at work, but more evident this time. I used to always think that how great it would be to be in construction, or how great it would be to be an author of books, or how great it would be to be a chef. When you're done doing your thing, there's a product.
You see it. You see your work.
You can even taste your work.
Yeah.
You can touch your work. You know that you have started it and you know that you have ended it. That's the difficulty in our field, is that you really never know the impact.
Yeah, and how long-term or short-term it may be.
Right.
It's short-term, but you don't know about 10 years later. Yeah.
And it might even be generational. That is, you move the needle slightly for one individual that impacted their children or their grandchildren. Right. So, you get done, get doing our work, whether it is a Sunday morning or a class or even retirement at the end of 40 years. And somebody says, so what'd you accomplish? I'm not sure.
I was at church a lot.
However, this past Sunday, I think I got a glimpse of it. So I got an email on Monday, yesterday, about a member of the congregation whose dad died rather tragically less than a year ago. And very healthy guy, young retiree, led a very fulfilling career, and then just a bizarre, strange accident, and he was dead within 4 days.
Oh my goodness!
So this individual in the congregation said that he was really still struggling about his dad's death. He was asking all those questions. Why, oh Lord? I mean, he was only, 72 years old. Why, oh Lord, should a healthy, fit guy have this freak accident? Why, oh Lord, after all he's accomplished, that you end his life quickly? I mean, he was kind of going through all the grief.
Yeah.
Maybe all the stages, and I think he was a little bit stuck on anger. So he was in church on Sunday and wrote me an email on Monday. And he said, I know it was you preaching, Pastor Scott, but I think it was my dad speaking to me. And what Dad was, of course, he wasn't literal about that. The Holy Spirit was okay, but this is what he said his dad would have wanted him to hear. That son, you're focused on the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
That career that I had that was so successful, impacted so many people, that's done and gone. My age doesn't really matter, the age. And then he, in the email, kind of went through each one of those triads. I have fought the good fight. Talking about how he was, very much involved with the community, very much involved with students, very much involved with his church. That it wasn't a frivolous life. It wasn't just a pleasurable life. It was a good life. You see, he fought the good fight. He finished the race. Even at the end, he was just still so vibrant and still so engaged. Volunteer, community, family, church. He was not sitting back and said, well, I did that in my 40s or 50s, and now somebody else's turn.
Yeah,
No,
life didn't stop for him. He kept at it, kept going.
That's right. I finished the race. And then he said, son, I kept the faith, which I pass down to you now, that you may keep the faith and pass it one day down to your children as well. So it didn't matter the 700 or 800 people in church on Sunday. It didn't matter the 750 that were watching online. This Sunday, the Spirit was talking to one that really needed some sort of resolution from the anger, the sadness,
The bitterness, maybe.
some bitterness too, about losing a dad way too early.
What a healing experience, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. And, I think, it sounds like the Holy Spirit really spoke, and his father may have been there in that cloud of witnesses and the mystical communion of saints. I think it also framed everything. It framed it for everybody else. Like, even if it didn't speak to someone, like everyone in the same way, like it did him, I think it did speak to everyone. I mean, that's the Holy Spirit's work, but it also helped us frame our own thinking about our lives and what matters. I mean, so I think it was good for reflective for someone who's gone through that. I mean, what an amazing, powerful insight to receive.
Yeah.
And then also to kind of everyone, give us a chance to think about our deaths and what life means, and is that what matters? And so maybe a way of framing it for the future.
I've thought about some people who have grown older, and some are no longer fighting the good fight. That is, they think the goal of retirement is to get a condo at the beach and collect seashells. They did the church stuff earlier with the kids, but now I got a heck of a seashell collection here.
Yeah, I'm off.
And that's not the good fight. Or they just didn't finish the race. There are certainly those people that after the kids get out of the house, they came to realize that I was just kind of going to church because for the kids, or because that's what good tax-paying citizens do. They go to church, they raise their kids in the church. But as soon as they're gone, that is a very fragile time. We see at the church that there's two fragile times in which people slip away from the church. The first one is, right out of high school and early 20s. That's a very fragile time. That's number one. But the second one is when the last kid leaves the house and they kind of look at each other and say, do you want to go to church? Or there's a great brunch over here, or let's sleep in, and they don't finish the race. And maybe at the end, they don't keep the faith. There was this one pastor I knew a long time ago that he was always just kind of questioning orthodoxy, questioning. He would be tempted more towards some of the Gnostic teachings or some different kinds of spirituality. And then after he retired, he just flatly, plainly, and with a little bit of glee, just said, I don't believe any of this garbage. I never have. And I have been set free from the myth of Christianity. And I thought, wow, you've been faking it for all these years. Wow. Now, I say faking it, but his congregation could see right through it. They dwindled down to nothing because the Spirit was not speaking through him. But he, I haven't spoken to him in the longest time, but I get a sense he's become bitter.
So he wasn't in the race really at all, or?
I think he started in the race. He could have been a plumber or an architect, or, he chose to be a pastor. There must have been something at the start, but he didn't finish strong. Finish strong, and that is so important to me too. I have, being part of that senior pastors conference of large churches for so many years, I've heard story after story about pastors who have had a long ministry at a church, and the last couple of years, they've stumbled. Either because they didn't recognize the culture was changing, either because they were no longer engaged, either because they weren't connecting with their staff, either because their vision was not aligned with the congregation's vision. But there's been too many of them that at the end the congregation said, hey, it's time for you to go, which is not a good way to end.
No, that's sad.
Yeah. So it did, I don't know about you when you're preparing a sermon. I do one of two things. I don't preach to the masses. I usually think about an individual. Could be a real individual who is struggling with the sermon that I'm trying to write. And how would I say this to this individual if it was over a cup of coffee? Or the second person that I preach to is myself. What do I need to hear from this text? Knowing that I'm probably not all that unique. That if I've got questions about this text, if I've got questions about this part of the faith, I cannot be alone.
Right, yeah, someone else would too, maybe.
Yeah. So in this one, it is Paul talking about his impending death, but the beneficiary is Timothy, because Timothy also died a violent death, according to tradition. And I got to think that when his time came, and he knew it was imminent, he could still remember the words of his beloved mentor. Fight the good fight, Timothy.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
Right, yeah, hold on. Yeah, keep
Stay
going.
in the race. You don't sit in the sidelines. And make sure above all things to keep the faith. Because that crown of righteousness is there. That when Paul talks about that crown of righteousness, I didn't want people to think that that is the end all of the Christian life. In other words, I didn't want people to walk away and think, all right, if I just kind of endure whatever I'm going through right now, one day I get to go to heaven.
Right.
I think what the is really that both and. Because Paul knew that there was a crown with his name on it reserved, that the Lord of righteousness will put on his head. That set, Therefore, I can completely devote myself to this world and the preaching and the healing and the teaching and everything else there too. It's got to be both.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because if we focus too much on the crown, then we lose perspective of the importance of the race. Like, well, who cares? We can just disengage or just, we'll run the race and check out kind of when we focus on just what's heaven, what's the crown, what's that. So I appreciate that was kind of like in the background, of your sermon. It wasn't, hold on, keep going, you're going to get a crown. You didn't take that perspective.
Yeah.
It was the race and keeping the faith. And, I think his letter is also about the faith, like the faith of the church, the faith, because there were so many of the false teachers that, all the things that the race can maybe get twisted and turns and stuff. But.
Well, it was so good to end Tim Talks with Paul. We don't know how soon after that, but it was short that he was finally beheaded in Rome. And when we go to Rome in this church trip coming up in a month, I'm going to make sure I go to Mamertine Prison in Rome that has the place of his imprisonment and to be able to reflect on fighting the good fight and finishing the race.
Sounds amazing.
It's coming up. Well, we've got a new sermon series. Not really. No, we got Pentecost on Sunday.
Yeah, Pentecost on Sunday. Huge day for the church.
Make sure you wear red.
Yes, wear red.
All right, we'll see you then.